PDL Week 6 feels like we were starting the season not very long ago. I guess it's been about 6 weeks. But we are heading into the late stages of the regular season now, and still a lot is going on around the league. Here are the standings as of the end of Week 5, so as always, this is the same table that appeared in Monday's video, and you see the same thing at the very top. 3 teams all tied with a 4-1 record and a differential of +6. The East Coast Espurr, Pendragon United, and Staff United neck to neck in, that's not the saying, neck and neck in the race for first place overall. Whole bunch of people walking past my window. Don't know what that's about. Doesn't look like a protest. Anyway, we also have the Ontario Oguris and the Espurr Chatots at 4-1 with slightly worse tiebreakers, so a lot of possible shakeups in that top 5 over the rest of the season. But good bet that we'll see those teams make playoffs. And then a few more teams, really everyone's still in it, but a few more teams in particular jockeying for those last 3 playoff spots. The Toronto Rockslide, currently tied with the Dreamyard, Darkrais, and the Elegancy, but a few other teams breathing down our necks, and some others finding some success in the late stages of the season that they didn't have in the first half. So anything can still happen from here. Of course, the Toronto Rockslide played Pendragon United in Monday's video, so you can check that one if you haven't yet to see whether we were able to interfere with their efforts to claim first place or not. But in the meantime, we're going to jump into the other sets from this week in just a moment. First, there are a couple of trades. The cooler Dreamyard Darkrais have dropped Stonjourner and picked up Wigglytuff. Stonjourner is a Pokemon that always seems kind of interesting to me, but I never can quite justify using it, so I can understand not wanting to hold on to it on this team. The Power Spot ability could be helpful for giving a boost to strong Pokemon like Spectrier and Bellydrum Azumarill, making them hit somewhat harder. But Wigglytuff is it's a solid fairy type. It's not bad as a complement to some of the other attackers on this team, especially if they're playing like a Spectrier mode. They could benefit. I mean, they have Azumarill already, and they have Scrafty as a fighting type, but they could use some more cover to help Spectrier and Darkrai to an extent break through difficult matchups. All that said, I have a sneaking suspicion that that might not be the main reason they picked up Wigglytuff, as this is yet another Perish Song user. They now have 3 Pokemon that can use Perish Song, along with Azumarill, Absols, and now Wigglytuff. And of course they have that Gothitelle to trap things. So we'll see what it is that they're actually cooking with this. Of course, they don't have to bring the same mode every single week, but definitely a couple scary things that they can do with this Wigglytuff. And the other trade, I don't actually know. I couldn't tell whether this was supposed to be a Week 6 trade or a Week 7 trade, but I glanced ahead at the replay, and they didn't bring either of these Pokemon, so I think it's fine to just cover it now. The Espurr Chatots have dropped Stoutland and picked up Dugtrio. Stoutland, of course, was another Sand Rush attacker to complement the Dracovish, benefiting from the sand set up by Tyranitar, but it also gets Intimidate, so you can also run that ability. But Stoutland is, I think, just not as strong a Sand Rush attacker. Certainly not as strong as Dracovish, but maybe not strong enough that they could justify bringing it, as in fact I don't remember seeing it very often this season. Maybe week by week, Stoutland was just not quite measuring up to what the team needed. I'm not sure. I'm not the coach of the Espurr Chatots, but I could see that being a reason to look for alternatives. As for Dugtrio, Dugtrio is a very interesting Pokemon in draft formats because, of course, with the Arena Trap ability, it traps all grounded Pokemon on the field. It's also reasonably fast. It doesn't hit very hard, but it's you have to take it somewhat seriously as an offensive ground type. But Dugtrio can really warp an opponent's decisions in the team builder and at team preview in a draft league format, because trapping is just such a powerful thing to have to play around. So I don't know whether they have any specific plans for Dugtrio, or I don't know if Dugtrio is just here to mess with people's heads, and they figured Stoutland was expendable just for that purpose. But we'll find out in the late stages of the season whether they have some plan for Dugtrio to put in work. Either way, it is another wrinkle that their opponents have to think about when they're preparing for this matchup. That's it for trades for now. Week 7 has a few trades in the book already, but of course we will get to those next week. And all that's left now is to go to the replays. Let's go. This week we start with Ryangreenblue taking on the Nothing Burger. They played this one really early in the week, and there are a bunch of spoiler-tagged messages in the Discord about whatever happens, so it should be a good one. On the Ryangreenblue side, we have some of the usual hard Trick Room stuff, not as much as usual, actually. I don't think the Magearna is here this week. Instead, there's Blissey, which is a very bulky Pokemon, generally not a very offensive one, so I definitely wonder what they're cooking with that. Of course, whenever I see Blissey in this generation, I remember the Chansey Shuckle teams from Gen 8 VGC, where Shuckle would use, I think the move is called Guard Split, to even its defenses with Chansey, and then I think Chansey would use Minimize, so its defense would go way up, effectively, because it was sharing the stat with Shuckle, and it would boost its evasiveness, so it would be very hard to remove. I'm not sure whether Stakataka is able to do the same thing. It is very physically bulky as well. So I wonder whether whatever got people so excited in the Discord is something like that, but I don't know if it's even possible with this team. In any case, they can set Trick Room with the Stakataka and the Bronzong, and they can attack with Golurk and Vikavolt, so there's some familiar stuff here, the tanky Melodic as well, but we'll see if they're cooking something special with the Blissey. And on the Nothing Burger side, we've got my favorite trio of Ditto, Mew, and Silvally. We've got the Azurill and Runerigus duo again. Last week we saw that I think Wandering Spirit doesn't activate if the Pokemon is Dynamaxed. I think that's correct. So now Azurill should be able to swap huge power onto Runerigus if they get the positioning right, now that they know how to avoid what went wrong for it last week. But they also have Galarian Weezing here, so they can also turn off abilities if they want. I don't know what they're going for either, as usual with this team. Let's just jump in and find out. Ryangreenblue says, "Welcome to hell" in chat. And they also say, "Remember, no Dynamax." Have they agreed not to use Dynamax in this game? In this set? I suppose that's something that two coaches could agree among themselves if they wanted. We see Golurk leading with Blissey against Azurill and Ditto. Ditto transforming into Golurk. Leading Ditto game 1 is already really something. Pretty bold. As we see Ditto Protect, which means Golurk knows Protect. And Ditto's probably not choiced if it's using that move. We see Blissey use Skill Swap. It takes no guard from Golurk, I assume. Azurill goes for Perish Song. Makes sense, it's Baby Azumarill. It would also get that move. So I think we've got no guard Blissey. I don't know why you would run a different ability on Golurk and run Skill Swap. Is there a one-hit KO move somewhere on their team? I don't know. Oh, does Vikavolt get Guillotine? And then there's Perish Song Azurill, but what are they planning to do with that? I guess if they force a switch, they do get rid of whatever the Skill Swap chain is here, and it is Vikavolt. It's Skill Swap into Vikavolt. Blissey now is Levitate, which is probably not going to come into play, but it could be kind of funny. Okay, Azurill uses Soak to make Blissey a Water type, while Ditto goes for Phantom Force. I'm not really sure what the Soak is useful for here, but Azurill just protects. Ditto is, of course, impossible to hit while it's invisible with the Phantom Force, so... Actually, no, with no guard they could hit it. It's faster than Vikavolt anyway, so the Phantom Force comes out first. Also, you can't Guillotine a Ghost type. Sorry, there's a lot to keep track of here. In theory, they actually could hit the Ditto with no guard while it's Phantom Forced, except it's a Ghost type, so it won't work anyway, but also it's faster. I think that's all clear enough. Vikavolt gets chipped a bit. It is Guillotine into Azurill. Goes into a Protect. The Perish counter is up. Blissey switches out. Vikavolt doesn't have to worry about it because it was not here when the song was sung. And we get a double switch from the Nothing Burger. We get Mew and Electric-type Silvally. Guillotine wipes out Mew. Ditto's back. It turns into Vikavolt. Ditto should also have Guillotine and no guard then, right? And with Ditto not being choiced, it's a speed tie now between Ditto and Vikavolt. Okay, the whole game might come down to that, especially with Electric Silvally not necessarily being threatening into Vikavolt, although it depends on its moves. Vikavolt protects here. Silvally goes for Heat Wave, so it does have a way to threaten. And Vikavolt avoids a Guillotine. And Stakataka says Trick Room, so Stakataka will go first this next turn. The two Vikavolt with the no-guard Guillotine will still speed tie. Stakataka has a chance to at least... actually, Stakataka has a chance to threaten Ditto with big rock-type damage. And then Vikavolt can underspeed Silvally and Guillotine it. It's Quick Claw Ditto. Okay. This is the first one this week. I don't even get to warm up to it. It's Quick Claw Ditto. The Quick Claw activates, guarantees it goes before the Vikavolt. Stack Attack did not go for rock type damage into Ditto. Stack Attack used Ally Switch so that Ditto would target it, and then would buy a turn, even if Ditto went first, for the real Vikavolt to get an attack off into, presumably, Ditto. Maybe Silvally, because Silvally's a little bit threatening with that Heat Wave. So, Stack Attack played around the Quick Claw. I guess it did what it wanted to do. And, then it drops to a Guillotine. It is Guillotine into Ditto. So only one side has the Guillotine now, but Silvally goes for a Heat Wave, single target. Ryangreenblue did set Light Screen at some point. Don't ask me when. There's too much else to keep track of here. So Vikavolt survives the Heat Wave, gets some health back from an Iapapa Berry. And now Blissy's here, and Blissey can target Heal Pulse into Vikavolt and keep it healthy, and Blissey can probably go before like anything in Trick Room. Azuro's back, though. Maybe it can do something. Whirlpool into Vikavolt is, I guess, a start. It does some damage, but there's Guillotine wiping out the Silvally. There's the Heal Pulse into Vikavolt. I knew the Blissey was up to something tricky. I guessed wrong as to what that would be. But I think I figured it out reasonably quickly once it got going. As Vikavolt Guillotine completes the sweep, dropping the mighty Azurill. And I have nothing to say. Let's just go to game 2 and see if the Nothing Burger can adjust to this somehow. Melodic leading this time with Golurk against Mew and Azurill. So it looks like a different game plan from Ryangreenblue. Golurk just protects this turn on a Leaf Blade from Mew. Okay, Leaf Blade, I guess, is a way for Mew to have coverage into both Golurk and Melodic. So it makes some sense. We get Coil from Melodic. It's going to be Coil Hypnosis stuff again, I assume. Golurk avoids a Whirlpool. Now Blissey comes in on a Leaf Blade. Takes it pretty well, actually. I guess Leaf Blade's base power is not that high, and Mew's attack is not that high, and it doesn't have stab. Put all that... Also, I don't know what Mew's item is, but put all that together, and even though Blissey has terrible physical defense, it has amazing HP as well. It takes that reasonably well. Here now is the Hypnosis into Mew, as Azurill goes for Perish Song, so Perish Song can at least disrupt the Melodic setup here. Blissey just protects this turn, so does Azurill. Mew's asleep. Hypnosis goes into Protect. Okay, relatively quiet turn for this set. Azurill with Whirlpool, of course, can also trap things, so they have that much of a Perish Trap mode. Wheezing switches in. It does have Neutralizing Gas. Melodic, not taking his chances with the Whirlpool, switches out to Vikavolt, and Blissey switches out to Golurk. Okay, makes sense. Azurill switches out now, which is interesting. Ditto comes in, but because Neutralizing Gas is on the field, Imposter does not activate, so it misses a chance to transform into Vikavolt this time, and of course it wouldn't have No Guard anyway, because Vikavolt doesn't have it this time. But in any case, yeah, the Neutralizing Gas prevents the Ditto from transforming, and Ditto just pivots right back out to Mew. Golurk out to Melodic, Vikavolt out to Blissey. Okay. Much quieter game so far. Blissey easily takes an Overheat from Wheezing. That's an interesting Wheezing move there. Not even Flamethrower, it's just firing off at full power with an Overheat. Maybe that KOs the Vikavolt or something, I don't know. We get Smokescreen on the Wheezing, lowering Melodic's accuracy, taking away arguably the most important part of the Coil boost. I mean, the defense boost matters too, especially since Mew is using a physical attack, but Leaf Blade's high crit rate could overcome that. Melodic also does not get a competitive boost here because Neutralizing Gas has switched its ability off, so it does actually just take the drop from Smokescreen without punishing that. Blissey sets a Light Screen here. And then switches out to Golurk. Definitely a slower, quieter game so far, although... Yeah, fair enough to comment on the Smokescreen in chat. There's another Smokescreen to offset the boost again. It is getting the defense boost, though. And attack, but I don't think it's using those. Wheezing's... Okay, Zero's back. Wheezing switches out, which means the Ditto can come in and actually transform into Melodic. And it gets the Coil boosts that Melodic has. Hypnosis connects into Azurill, puts it to sleep, as Golurk goes for Earthquake. That's not doing too much to anyone, and once again, we do see a red card. Oh, you can red card your teammate? I didn't even know that. I wonder whether Ryangreenblue knew that, or whether that happened unintentionally. Because Melodic takes damage from the spread Earthquake, it uses the red card against its partner, forcing Vikavolt in. Ryangreenblue says, I'm so scared in the chat. Maybe didn't know that red card has that interaction. I certainly didn't know that. Okay, Mew is back. Melodic, or sorry, excuse me, Ditto is asleep. Vikavolt goes for a Guillotine, but it doesn't have no guard this time, so it misses. Ditto. Now Blissy's here, now Golurk's here, a lot of switching still this game. Mew finally wakes up and transforms into Blissey. Okay. Alright, Transform and Leaf Blade on the Mew, and we won't see what else right now because it has Blissy's moves now. But what does transforming into Blissey do for them here? Blissey protects, Melodic is asleep, Ditto's asleep, Heal Pulse, sure, it hadn't taken a lot of damage anyway. Blissey, Ditto. Ditto takes that Ice Punch not super well, but not super terribly. It gets a Quick Claw here, but it goes into Protect, so kind of a waste of a Quick Claw activation. Ditto now is setting up with the Coil. Blissey goes for the skill swap, finally starting up that no guard chain, as Ditto does avoid an Ice Punch. Now... Okay, so, like, stop stealing all my Pokemon, that's true. Ditto and Mew are both on the field, transformed into Ryangreenblue Pokemon here. But the Vikavolt is finally coming in next to the no-guard Blissey. Melodic, Ditto. Ditto. Ditlotic. Keep setting up with the core. Oh my god. They just tried to take the no-guard away. They're not just stealing the Pokemon, they tried to steal the ability, too. Unfortunately for the Nothing Burger, the Quick Claw didn't activate this turn, and Ditto lost... No, this one's Mew. Mew lost the speed tie, so Blissey does manage to give no guard to Vikavolt before Mew takes it away. But that was a good effort by the Nothing Burger. Slightly in their favor to actually work, because it's a 50-50 with the speed tie, and then they also have the Quick Claw chance. But Vikavolt will be able to try to sweep again now, including against the boosted Ditto. The real Melodic switches in, Ditto protects... Blissey's faster than the Vikavolt. They took the no-guard away after all. It worked. Not quick enough? Well, this time they were. Guillotine goes into a Protect anyway. Blissey protects. Ditto puts Melodic to sleep. Hang on. Vikavolt, base speed. Blissey does have higher base speed than Vikavolt, so yeah, it probably is faster and not a speed tie like these chat messages kind of imply. Vikavolt does land a Guillotine though without no guard, and it knocks out the Ditto. Azuro's back. It's asleep. That happened at some point. I don't remember. And now Blissey's here. Azuro gets Heal Pulsed. Vikavolt lands another Guillotine into the Mew. Both transformed Pokemon are out of here. It's just Azurill and Weezing left for the Nothing Burger. Smokescreen into Vikavolt. I don't know, actually, whether the accuracy stat matters to one-hit KO moves. One-hit KO moves are weird in how they calculate their accuracy. I think at level 100, maybe it is just a straight 30%, and they are influenced by Smokescreen drops, but I actually think somewhere in the back of my brain, there might be some reason that they're not affected by the Smokescreen drops. But I can't justify that. It's just a thought that's nagging at me that I guess I'll look into after this set. Okay, what happened here? Smokescreen, Light Screen, Guillotine takes out Weezing. They've landed, what, 3 in a row now? But they miss Azurill. They miss again. Parasong is up, though, and Ryangreenblue actually wins the Parasong endgame because they have more than 2 Pokemon. They probably also have the slowest Pokemon. Will there be another Guillotine connecting into Azurill? I still was never sure what the Soak was for. I guess the Soak is for the Electric Silvally. They can click... I was going to say they can click Soak into... Okay, Azurill will drop its own Parasong. I was going to say they can click Soak into Multi-Attack, but... Silvally used Heat Wave, so it's probably Special Silvally, but maybe it has an Electric attack with Stab from the Electric memory, and that's probably what the Soak is for. We saw it used a couple times in this set, but nothing really came of it. I thought there was a Game 3 in the Discord. I might have been faked out here. Yeah, they just sent the replay of Game 2 twice. Classic fake. But Ryangreenblue does take a convincing 2-0 win with the no-guard Guillotine Vikavolt. Took a while longer to set it up in Game 2, and it was kind of a little bit hard to follow what was happening with the Mew and the Ditto both transformed, but in the end, The Nothing Burger just didn't really give themselves a way to break through, I guess. I mean, the melodic, ditto, hypnosis, accuracy boosted stuff was okay, but it was just a very slow, switchy game until Ryangreenblue did go for the guillotine stuff again. But of course, the real story of Game 2 is they didn't actually have no guard. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm missing one important thing. Barry was the Mew transformed into the Blissey, right? Okay. It's not as lucky as it looked. No guard means that the Pokemon that has no guard can't miss its attacks, and also opponents can't miss it. So, I don't know if in double battles that affects the partner though. Like this guillotine that landed into the Ditto, that might have been the 30%. The second guillotine was guaranteed because of the target's no guard. But then they were just lucky hitting the third guillotine into Wheezing. I mean, crazy game how that turned out after the no guard was stolen regardless, but it is a little bit of a flaw in the Nothing Burger's plan that no guard still means that the Pokemon with no guard is guaranteed to be hit. The Vikavolt, either way, the Vikavolt went absolutely nuts, even after its ability was yoinked. And I'm actually gonna... What am I gonna do here? I'm gonna check a couple of interactions on Bulbapedia, and then I'll be back. Okay, if I'm interpreting this correctly, then Guillotine's chance to hit is not influenced by Smokescreen. Chance to hit is not an accuracy, it is not affected by accuracy and evasion stats, nor is it affected by other accuracy modifiers such as gravity, wide lens, and compound eyes. So I guess for some reason it's just calculated separately from the accuracy stats. So I think Smokescreen did not lower Vikavolt's chances of hitting. As for no guard, I did check that as well. It looks like it only affects the user, the no guard haver, and anything that it targets. So I think the guillotine into Ditto was luck, the guillotine into Mew was guaranteed, and then the guillotine into Wheezing was luck. So lucky first hit, guaranteed second hit, lucky third hit. Still pretty lucky overall for that Vikavolt. I also saw one of the coaches apologizing in the Discord for the headache this would cause me, but no need for that. That is the craziest set that I've commented yet in this league, and I'm happy I got to see it. And I think I might actually be glad that it was the first one this week. I didn't get to warm up to it, but also I'm not tired from doing earlier ones. That said, there are still all of the others to get through for this week, so... next we have the Bashful Bisharps taking on the Azurbe Chatots. Like I said, I did peek at this one just to check whether the Chatots brought Stoutland or Dugtrio, because I was trying to pin down the timing of that trade. They didn't bring either one. They brought Tyranitar with Dracovish, so there's that Sand duo. Familiar faces, Clefable, Salazzle, and Genesect for well-rounded mix of slow support, fast support, offense, multiple things these Pokemon could do. Genesect doesn't seem to be running any special drive this time, and they do also have the Doublade, which makes sense into the Ice-type heavy... Actually, it makes sense into a lot of what the Bisharps have, right? Because Doublade can also wall the Terrakion, probably, as well as causing some trouble for the Arctozolt and the Ninetales. On the Bisharp side, we do have that trio of Ninetales, Tapu Koko, and Arctozolt again, so Arctozolt can get all the power-ups it wants to try to go crazy with Slush Rush boosted Bolt Beak, or Max Lightning, or Max Hailstorm. They do have Terrakion as a strong attacker. They have Celesteela as the steel type of choice this time. Celesteela able to... well, it's strong into Tyranitar. Depending on its set, it might... Depending on both their sets, it might be helpful into Genesect, and certainly into Clefable as well, being able to heavy slam that Pokemon. And maybe it can take a hit from Dracovish? Who knows? Slowking could probably take a hit from Dracovish, and that Pokemon is here too. There don't tend to be a lot of things that can take a hit from Dracovish, but maybe we'll see. Salazzle and Genesect lead against our favorite duo in this, our favorite Bashful Bisharps duo, Ninetales and Arctozolt. Genesect gets the attack boost from the download, and Dynamaxes immediately. Steel types are pretty threatening, largely into the Bisharps, although, of course, they don't resist Bolt Beak. But Salazzle will go for a fake out into Arctozolt, and Arctozolt doesn't Dynamax, so it does flinch. The Bolt Beak doesn't go off. There is an Aurora Veil, after which Ninetales takes the Max Flare. But now the Hail is gone because of that, and of course Salazzle should be faster than anything else, and also gets boosted Fire-type damage into these two Ice types here. Ninetales Dynamaxes, though, and it actually is the fastest Pokemon here. Huh, okay. Well, it's not max speed Salazzle. Okay, good to know. Goes for max Hailstorm to put the Hail right back up and get Arctozolt fast again, and then Arctozolt knocks out Salazzle. Ninetales being faster than Salazzle definitely seems a bit awkward for the Chatots. I don't think that early game went the way they intended, but Genesect just goes for another max Flare, almost KOs Arctozolt, sets the sun back up. Now Tyranitar is here for the Sandstorms. We've seen 3 different weathers already in Game 1. The Hail is back. The Bolt Beak takes out Tyranitar. Genesect will get another chance to attack. It's Max Steel Spike. It knocks out the Ninetales. That doesn't change the weather, though. This is Genesect's last turn of Dynamax, and Tyranitar has fainted, so it looks like the Hail is probably up to stay, and Arctozolt is not KO'd. And Salazzle has fainted. There could be Shadow Sneak Doublade in the back, and then that could take out the Arctozolt. We'll see if that's what it does here, as it does in fact switch in. Tapu Koko is here. It sets up its terrain. No Shadow Sneak from the Doublade, so it takes a big Bolt Beak, but it does survive, but then it drops the Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko. Genesect will get a chance to attack here. It finally knocks out the Arctozolt. But it's the only Pokemon left standing against Tapu Koko, and Celesteela, the Dracovish killer. Does survive a Life Orb Thunderbolt. Flamethrower does not do much back to Celesteela through Aurora Veil, and as I kind of suspected, Celesteela does have a Flamethrower of its own to KO Genesect. So, the Bashful Bisharps overwhelming the Chatots here in Game 1. A couple of things that seemed like they mattered quite a lot were 1, Salazzle being slower than Ninetales, and 2, Ninetales winning the Weather War, while also Arctozolt was not quite knocked out quickly enough. So definitely some ways that the Chatots can adjust in Game 2, but I do wonder what we'll see from the Salazzle if it comes to this one again. Dracovish leads with Clefable this time, the 2 Pokemon they didn't bring to Game 1, against Tapu Koko and Arctozolt. Bisharps may be opting out of an early game Weather War this time, or maybe not, maybe the Ninetales will switch in. Clefable goes for Follow Me, Dracovish moves before Arctozolt. It does have the higher base speed, and just wipes out Tapu Koko with a Vicious Rend. And since Clefable moved before Arctozolt, I think Bolt Beak does not get the boost, right? But it does get the terrain boost and still hits the Clefable pretty hard. But it activates the Citrus Berry. Clefable could take another of those. Ninetales is here now. We'll get the Hail up, so Arctozolt will go before Dracovish, but not before Clefable, because Clefable clicks Follow Me again. Ninetales, okay, Ninetales we know is likely very fast, so this could be Scarf Dracovish, in which case it might not have Sand Rush. It could just be bluffing the Dracovish Tyranitar duo. In any case, it knocks Ninetales down to a Focus Sash, but thanks to the Sash, Ninetales does take that. It goes for Freeze Dry, but because Arctozolt has been unable to knock out the Clefable, I think thanks to Follow Me having priority and so moving before Bolt Beak, Freeze Dry is redirected. That would probably have just one-shot Dracovish, but it doesn't get to hit that target. Arctozolt will still be the fastest Pokemon on the field, though, with its team having Weather Control. Fake Out from Salazzle takes out the Ninetales. There's no more Freeze Dry to worry about, but Arctozolt does move before Dracovish thanks to the Slush Rush and one-shots it with Bolt Beak. Celesteela is the last Pokemon for the Bisharps. Genesect for the Chatots. Genesect Dynamaxes can go for that Max Flare again. Celesteela Dynamaxes on the other side, but probably doesn't much want to take the Max Flare. Genesect also has a special attack boost this time. Arctozolt gets to wipe out the Salazzle before dropping the Max Flare. Arctozolt's still doing a lot of damage this game. Is it enough? Max Flare from Celesteela does a lot into Genesect. It's just a question, I guess, of whether this Max Lightning KOs, and it is not close. Celesteela just so bulky. Takes that no problem, and the Bashful Bisharps take the 2-0 win. Pretty convincing win for the Bisharps there against the Chatots. Again, the speed interaction between Ninetales and Salazzle is probably the thing that's standing out to me most from Game 1. But after the crazy back and forth Weather War in Game 1, both sides kind of settled down on that in game 2, but the Chatots still brought the Ninetales, got the hail up for the Arctozolt. Arctozolt put in a lot of work, and Celesteela as just being very bulky, taking that max lightning really well, was able to close this one out. The max lightning would also not be boosted by the terrain, I think, because Celesteela is a flying type. I think that's how it works. Maybe I have that backwards. Maybe it's the user that gets the terrain boost, but I think the target decides it. I could be mistaken. So maybe Max Flare would have hit Celesteela harder is what I'm saying here, but even then I doubt it would have KO'd. Anyway, huge win for the Bisharps. Congrats to them. Kind of a quick set. We move on now to the Ontario Oguris taking on the Edmonton Empoleons. The Oguris bringing, I'll just say this, a version of their team that I don't expect to see again after this week. They have the Slurpuff, which I believe gets Belly Drum and Unburden, so that Pokemon might go crazy. We'll see. They have the Aegislash, which we haven't seen much of this season. They don't have the Pelipper or the Pincurchin. So Urshifu and Raichu are here, but their field effect friends are not here with them. Crobat and Aegislash can both be very threatening into Venusaur in different ways. So can Heatran, but it has to watch out for Earth Power, although we've seen Air Balloon Heatran before. Heatran is pretty solid all around, though, for threatening Togekiss, Steelix, Darmanitan. It might have had to be afraid of Crocodile, but we see that the Empoleons have not brought Crocodile. Yeah, they have a number of answers to Venusaur. They possibly have a number of answers to Darmanitan. Urshifu can threaten Darmanitan pretty convincingly, I would think. I can see Raichu helping them deal with the redirection from the Togekiss, but it's, as always, a tricky Edmonton Empoleons team, right? They could have Manual Sun with the Riolu. They could have Coaching with the Riolu into Darmanitan or Steelix. Steelix could be difficult to break, depending on the position. Like Belly Drum Slurpuff might be shut down by Steelix if that's what this Slurpuff is doing, but Heatran and Urshifu are threatening into that. So lots of different ways that these teams can threaten each other. Slightly unusual look from actually both sides. We see the Crocodile very often from the Empoleons lately, and not this time. And the Oguris not bringing, at least at preview, not obviously bringing Rain or Electric Terrain. I should also probably mention the Lileep on the Empoleon side, because of course that can redirect to Surging Strikes. Although Urshifu Close Combat looks pretty strong into a lot of this team if you can avoid it being redirected by Togekiss. Lileep actually leads with Togekiss against Raichu and Heatran. It is Air Balloon Heatran. Raichu just one-shots Togekiss with Thunderbolt. Okay. Raichu's not that strong, but clearly it's strong enough here. As Lileep actually takes a Heat Wave really well, presumably with an Eviolite, and Lileep is the Pokemon that sets up the Sun for Venusaur. Can't say I saw that one coming. Raichu switches out to Aegislash. Venusaur just Gigantamaxes right away. Heatran Dynamaxes. Gmax Vine Lash goes into Aegislash, looking to target the Raichu. Aegislash takes that pretty well, and Heatran's Air Balloon is still intact. The Vine Lash damage is, of course, set up now. Heatran Max Flare goes into Venusaur and one-shots it, so probably would have liked to accomplish more from the Venusaur there on the Empoleon side. And Lileep Solar Beam pops the balloon. That's a funny way to do that. Darmanitan is the last Pokemon for the Empoleons. Rock Slide just not doing very much in this position. Heatran is Dynamax. Aegislash resistance is very bulky. Max Flare wipes out Darmanitan. Aegislash goes for the Flash Cannon to Lileep. Lileep survives. Lileep, definitely the most clutch Pokemon for the Empoleons so far this week, but a Solar Beam is really not doing much to Heatran, and Heatran should be able to wrap this one up now. Aegislash goes for King's Shield. Why not, I guess. And Heatran wipes out Lileep with a Max Flare. Lileep definitely the MVP for the Empoleons so far, but they really struggled against the two Steel types from the Oguris, so we'll see what adjustments they come up with for that in Game 2. Venusaur leading this time with Riolu, so another likely Sunny Day user. Raichu and Heatran, again, on the Oguris side. It is Sunny Day from Riolu, but this time it's Sleep Powder into Heatran, so Heatran will not be able to get going as quickly in this game. Fortunately for the Oguris, Heatran didn't Dynamax, so it doesn't have to waste his Dynamax turns being asleep. And Raichu, once again, hitting pretty hard. Maybe harder. They're super effective attacks, but maybe harder than you expect from a Raichu. This time one-shotting the Venusaur with a Psychic. We got Steelix in now. Steelix is probably going to try to tank through this game. It does get Coaching from Riolu. That's pretty good into Raichu, although I bet Psychic still hits it pretty hard. But as soon as Heatran wakes up, the Steelix is probably in trouble. If the Psychic actually goes into Riolu, knocks it down to a Sash. Heatran stays asleep this turn, and Steelix Body Press knocks out Heatran. Never mind, I forgot that was an option. I thought they would have to pop the balloon and then go for a ground attack, but no, Steelix is just able to one-shot the Heatran there. So maybe Steelix can clutch this. Aegislash will definitely be a test for it. Aegislash comes in, it Dynamaxes. Steelix gets another coaching boost. We saw Flash Cannon on this Aegislash, so it's probably special. I would think a Max Phantasm off of Shadow Ball would do quite a bit to Steelix here. Raichu takes out the Riolu with a Psychic. And here comes the Max Phantasm, and it actually just KOs. Yeah, Aegislash is super strong. Obviously, there's very high defenses in shield form, but then very high attack, and people sometimes forget, also special attack in blade form. And so I think we just saw special Max Phantasm not care about those coaching boosts. Togekiss is the last Pokemon for the Empoleons. Raichu switches out instead of clicking Thunderbolt. I think probably because Raichu has choice specs. Urshifu is here. Togekiss Dynamaxes. Max Airstream, not doing a whole lot, even to Blade Form Aegislash, and it's going to have to take a Max Steel Spike now. It shows the Babiri Berry, so they had that cover for Steel types, but the Steel Spike still does half. And the Oguris have 2 other Pokemon that can threaten the Togekiss as well. Rare moment where an Urshifu Surging Strikes does not go through Protect, because this wasn't Protect, it was Max Guard. Urshifu has to Gigantamax to hit through that. Togekiss does survive the turn as the sun ends, and so does Aegislash's Dynamax. And Max Airstream does take out Aegislash now that it's not Dynamax anymore, but Urshifu gets to go for the Surging Strikes. It doesn't quite KO. Togekiss at +2 speed. If Togekiss... no. Actually, no. Actually, this is the perfect time for Togekiss's Dynamax to wear off, because I think it needs to take out both these Pokemon with Dazzling Gleam. To do that, I think it probably needs a crit into Raichu. It could be running Super Luck. Don't know. But no Dazzling Gleam at all. It's Air Slash into Urshifu. Urshifu actually has a Focus Sash, so never mind. The Empoleons couldn't win this. Because, yeah, they needed... So, if Air Slash flinched Urshifu, it might have even done that here. We didn't get to see because Raichu knocked out Togekiss. That was the problem with that. That was why they needed to knock out both Pokemon right away. I don't know if they ever could do that into Raichu. Maybe with a Super Luck Dazzling Gleam crit. But that's why they needed spread damage. They couldn't let either of these Pokemon throw off another attack. I don't know if the Empoleons had a chance to win that. It definitely wasn't a good chance, I would think. But Air Slash, definitely not enough there. Lileep was definitely the hero of this set, but despite its heroics, the Ontario Oguris do take the 2-0. Next, we have the Alaskan Absols taking on the Elegancy. The Absols once again, well, both sides once again agreeing that the Absols can use a substitute coach so as to not have to forfeit. Every time I see the Absols, it just feels like a good stuffs team. They've got Urshifu, that's a good Pokemon. Magnezone, that's strong. Arcanine, that's strong. Gyarados, that's strong. Goodra, that's strong. Salamence, that's strong. We'll see what they do. And of course on the Elegancy side, I was going to say of course on the Elegancy side, the Elegancy have been not the hardest hard Trick Room team in the league this season. That would be Ryangreenblue, but they've leaned into Trick Room quite often. But clearly less this week than some, because Klinklang and Nidoking are both not really Trick Room Pokemon. Hatterene and Escavalier are, but that looks like the whole Trick Room core for this week. Incineroar is pretty strong in this matchup. It can intimidate all the physical attackers on the other side. Liebird is very disruptive as always, but yeah, Klinklang is interesting. We have not seen much of that this season. It's not immediately obvious to me why we are seeing it now. I mean, it's a steel type. It can take hits from Salamence and Goodra probably. I think Klinklang is mainly a physical attacker, so it doesn't like being intimidated. It does get electric coverage for the Gyarados, but I'm not seeing the whole vision. Maybe I could just complement Nidoking. Actually, Klinklang and Nidoking together have pretty decent coverage into this team, I would think, although the Urshifu is still an issue. But let's jump in and find out, because I'm not sure what's going on. Arcanine and Magnezone against Nidoking and Klinklang. Arcanine showing the Intimidate. Klinklang has Clear Body. I did not remember that it gets that ability. But, okay, can't be intimidated. That's a little bit more of the picture coming together. Klinklang doesn't look great in this position, though. We'll see if it switches out. Nidoking looks really good in this position, though, and that's... I guess goes to those two Pokemon complementing each other well in this matchup. Gyarados comes in. It also has Intimidate. Nidoking just goes straight for a Sludge Wave, and Klinklang is immune. Okay. More synergy. They have pretty complementary coverage in this team, and also Nidoking can go for that spread poison damage without worrying about hitting its teammate. Its teammate is Klinklang or Escavalier. They brought 2 steel types, so Nidoking can click Sludge Wave next to either one of them. It chips these Pokemon down, does some damage. Arcanine Heat Wave misses Klinklang, kind of unfortunate for the Absols, as Klinklang actually sets the Trick Room. Can't say I saw that one coming either. And then goes for a Wild Charge. It takes out the Gyarados, so it's slow Klinklang. And it is a Trick Room mode. It's just more disguised than usual. Arcanine goes for Howl. Probably wanted that to also work on the Gyarados. Nidoking will go last now because Trick Room is up, but this is... Actually, it's not single target Sludge Wave. It does also target the Klinklang, even though Klinklang is immune, and it doesn't get the KO on Arcanine. Arcanine showing an Aguav Berry. Magnezone comes in now. It has Room Service. Smart tech for one of the more Trick Room focused teams this season. Nidoking switches out to Liepard, avoiding the Flash Cannon. Liepard gets hit pretty hard by that. He's a Citrus Berry. Arcanine takes that Klinklang Wild Charge really well. Of course, there's no stab on it. So, Klinklang looking great this matchup so far, but does show its limitations a little bit, failing to take out the Arcanine there. And of course, Arcanine resists Klinklang's actual stab of Steel. And a big Arcanine Heat Wave. Howl and Heat Wave is an interesting combination, but a big Arcanine Heat Wave takes out Liepard and severely weakens Klinklang. Nidoking is back, but it's now, not for the first time this season, vulnerable in its own team's Trick Room. That's been an issue for Nidoking a couple of times. What kind of cook is Special Arcanine? I'm not surprised by Special Arcanine. Arcanine's special attack stat is kind of slept on. It's not crazy high, but it is definitely usable. I've definitely used Special Arcanine at times, but I am surprised to see Howl Arcanine throwing off a special attack. That is some cooking for sure. That said, we also see it using that attack boost for an extreme speed that takes out the Klinklang. And again, Nidoking is vulnerable because it's fast. It does survive a Flash Cannon here. It does take out the Magnezone with an Earth Power. But now Urshifu shows up for the first time in the game, just as Trick Room is close to ending. Hatterene is here. We don't see the Urshifu detect on the last turn of Trick Room. And Hatterene only gets chipped a bit by the extreme speed, but Urshifu, okay, went for Sucker Punch, looking to take out the Hatterene before Hatterene could hit back. 100 base special attack. That's actually a little bit higher than I thought, but yeah, it's perfectly usable. But Hatterene clutching up here, surviving the +1 extreme speed and the Sucker Punch. We'll get a chance to throw off a Dazzling Gleam. KOs Urshifu. Does not KO Arcanine, but now Nidoking is the only Pokemon left to move this turn. And in a position that to me looked really good for the Absols. Well, I guess you have to deal with the Nidoking being fast again once the Trick Room wears off. I guess that's why they played it that way. They tried to take out the Hatterene before they have to deal with the Nidoking being fast. I don't know. I still feel like the Urshifu might also not have detected. It could be choiced or something. That's probably the most likely explanation. Maybe they didn't protect through the last turn of Trick Room because they weren't able to. But yeah, just missing the KO on Hatterene completely changes the end game there. And the Elegancy take this one, but not super convincingly. We'll see what adjustments both sides come up with in game 2. It's Gyarados and Urshifu leading this time against Hatterene and Nidoking. Interesting duo on the Elegancy side. Again, Nidoking very strong outside of Trick Room, Hatterene very strong inside Trick Room. How they manage that anti-synergy has been, to me, kind of a storyline of their whole season. Also, a storyline of this game, Urshifu Gigantamaxing turn 1. I think this is the first time we've seen a Gigantamax Urshifu this season. The Oguris have not been bringing the G-Max factor, which makes sense to me because they have, to some extent, a rain team, and so Urshifu being able to use Max Geyser is of some value to them. But Max Darkness, I guess, not as valuable to the Absols, and being able to hit through Max Guard could be situationally kind of nice, but we do get to see G-Max single strike Urshifu here. Turn 1, Nidoking takes out Gyarados and Thunderbolt. Max Steel Spike takes out Hatterene. Hatterene is not clutching up against any hits this game. Liepard is here. Nidoking, of course, being a special attacker, the defense boost does not help Urshifu deal with it, but Nidoking is, I would think, not very well positioned to threaten Urshifu here. It does Dynamax, though. I feel like they kind of have to do that because they're under a lot of pressure already. Liepard goes for Charm into Urshifu, but Single Strike Urshifu is a Dark type, so it is immune to the Prankster boosted move. And Arcanine goes for Howl, boosting Urshifu's attack, as Urshifu goes for G-Max 1 blow. Oh, does that also... Oh, never mind, it's Dark type. Never mind what I was going to say. I was going to say something silly. Oh no, G-Max 1 blow is definitely a Dark type attack. Does much damage to Nidoking. Nidoking takes out Arcanine with a Max Quake, but of course the special defense boost is not helpful into Urshifu. Liepard going for Copycat. Wait, that's so funny. I don't know if I've seen that interaction before. If I have, I haven't thought about it in a long time. Liepard goes for Copycat and executes an Earth Power into Urshifu. But Copycat is affected by Prankster. It gets +1 priority as a status move from Prankster. And Dark types are immune to moves affected by Prankster. So effectively, Liepard just used priority Earth Power with the priority coming from Prankster. And that means Urshifu was immune to the Earth Power. That's super funny. Max Knuckle takes out Liepard. Max Lightning does a quarter to Urshifu. Magnezone just sets a light screen instead of going for the KO into Nidoking. Maybe it couldn't get the KO. Anyway, Clickbait is here. Also, Urshifu's Gigantamax wore off, so the light screen could help it take a hit. Probably a safer play all around from the Absols there. Wicked Blow takes out the Nidoking, though. Nidoking probably has a Choice Scarf, but of course Choice items don't work while you're Dynamaxed, so Urshifu went first there. Also, Urshifu might have a Choice Scarf for all I know. I think it's only clicked Wicked Blow in this game except when it was maxed, and Choice items don't work when you're maxed. Magnezone Thunderbolt does a bunch of damage to Klinklang, and Wicked Blow finishes it off. The Absols hitting back hard. The Gigantamax Single Striker Shifu is pretty exciting to see, and we're going to go to Game 3 in just a moment, but I feel like I need to sneeze, so I'm going to pause the recording for that. Okay, I sneezed. Anyway, Game 3. I don't know, let's jump in. Goodra and Magnezone. We have not seen Goodra yet in this set. Nidoking and Incineroar, which we also haven't seen until now, on the other side. Magnezone switches out right away to Gyarados. Gyarados has to watch out for the Thunderbolt, but pretty sure it's Scarf Nidoking. Probably didn't click Thunderbolt turn 1 here. Goodra Dynamaxes. It's Ice Beam into Goodra. Goodra takes it really well, maybe with an Assault Vest. Unlike Choice items, Assault Vest does work when you're maxed. And it wipes Nidoking out with a Max Geyser right back. So Rain now is up for Gyarados and Goodra, which clearly is a Water-type attack. Gyarados takes the Flare Blitz from Incineroar, no problem. Incineroar looking very vulnerable here as Hatterene comes in. And Gigantamaxes takes about 40% from a Gyarados Waterfall, though. And Goodra Max Geyser misses the KO. Hatterene, once again, tanking hits, getting the opportunity to hit back. Incineroar burns Gyarados. And G-Max Smite still only does like a third to Goodra, but it does confuse both of these Pokemon. Gyarados now confused and burned. Goodra confused. Gyarados breaks through, lands a Waterfall into Hatterene, knocks it out. Not the greatest outcome from the Elegancy's Gigantamax there, but maybe the confusion will still come in clutch. Incineroar Parting Shot weakens the Goodra, pivots out to Escavalier. But there is no Trick Room for the Escavalier this time, so it's in an awkward spot speed control-wise. Gyarados breaks out of confusion. Waterfall doesn't do too much to Escavalier through the burn. But Goodra also snaps out of confusion. Yep. And lands a Hydro Pump into Incineroar for pretty big damage before dropping to a Darkest Lariat and lowering Incineroar's speed with Gooey. That's a nice touch, especially with no Trick Room up here. Actually, Gooey seems a little bit odd to bring into a Trick Room matchup, but it does work out for them here. So, I guess I know what they're doing. Fell Stinger into Gyarados. I think the Elegancy might have been anticipating that the Darkest Lariat would not KO Goodra, and we're looking to get the KO with Fell Stinger, which I believe gives +3 attack if it's the final blow. Like, Fell Stinger I think has low base power, but if it gets a KO, it gives +3 attack to the user, so they were probably trying to do that into Goodra, but the Incineroar hit too hard, and instead they just get not very much damage into Gyarados. Urshifu is here once again. Close combat, takes out Escavalier. Hard to imagine Incineroar can pull this one back, as in fact it just drops to a burned Waterfall in the rain. And so, Hatterene absolutely clutched up in Game 1. Tried to do it again in Game 2. It did tank a couple of hard hits, but comes up short. Sorry, Game 3, not Game 2. Comes up short this time, and the Alaskan Absols, after a close loss in Game 1, bounce back and take the set. Next we have a familiar face here, as Staff United take on the cooler Dreamyard Darkrais. The Darkrais... Sorry. I meant to say the full name. The cooler Dreamyard Darkrais bring... they bring Gothitelle, but no Perish Singer. I don't think any of these get Perish Song. But they do have the duo of Sigilif and Darkrai. They have the Spectre, which we've seen go crazy as a main attacker in some matchups. They have support for it from the Scrafty, maybe the Gothitelle. They have a bunch of fake-out options. The Kangaskhan is here as well. Staff United I guess are a hard team to Perish Trap anyway because they have that Weezing. But they do bring Weezing and Regigigas. Regigigas gets wide guard, so that gives them a bit of an out to Dark Void, although they'd rather have Regigigas attacking. They have the Sylveon, which can hit back very hard into Darkrai, take hits, and Scrafty, and take hits from Pokemon like Sigilyph and Spectre. They have the Meowstic for support. They have the Dragapult, which has put in a lot of work throughout the season. And they have the Buzzwole, which I don't think has put in a lot of work throughout the season, so maybe we get to see it go crazy into fighting weak Pokemon like Darkrai, Scrafty, and Kangaskhan here. Let's find out. There's a whole bunch going on in the chat. Manifesting the forgotten neutralizing gas. Alright, well, I think the cooler Dreamyard Darkrais are definitely embracing the villain persona. Called that one correctly, I guess. Spectre leads with Kangaskhan against Dragapult and Meowstic. Kangaskhan, of course, can fake out Dragapult because it gets Scrappy, so its normal attacks can hit Ghost types. But doesn't matter if Dragapult Dynamaxes, which it does here. Spectre protects. Did I miss something? Aw, puppies. Anyway. Fake out into Kangaskhan. Max Phantasm into Spectre. Doesn't do too much damage to the Protect. Does get the defense drops. Ice Punch into the Dragapult does a lot of damage. We don't see a weakness policy on the Dragapult. We also don't see Clear Body. It has Cursed Body instead, so it disables the Ice Punch. Kangaskhan switches out to Sigilyph. Meowstic goes for Fake Tears. It's Special Dragapult. Fake Tears into Sigilyph, while Max Phantasm is taking out Spectre anyway. Is it Special Dragapult? Meaning it does not itself take advantage of the defense drops? Guess we'll see. As the set plays out, we get Darkrai here with Sigilyph, so they can go for Gravity and Dark Void, but Dragapult should have the speed advantage. Darkrai Dynamaxes, so no Dark Void here. Meowstic sets a safeguard, looking to protect its team from the Dark Void, but that's not what's happening. Dragapult goes for Max Flutterby. That'll be off of U-turn, so probably it is physical Dragapult. I don't know what the Fake Tears is for then. Maybe setting up for something in the back, although I feel like that would pretty much have to be Sylveon. Or maybe Meowstic is just trying to hit harder itself. We haven't seen whether it has an attack yet, other than Fake Out. Max Flutterby doesn't do too much to the Darkrai, though. As Max Darkness into a Colbur Berry does not knock out the Dragapult. The Colbur Berry is good information for the cooler Dreamyard Darkrais. Sigilyph sets Tailwind. So Darkrai will have the speed advantage now. Max Darkness takes out Dragapult. What does Meowstic do? Takes an Air Slash and flinches. Now Sylveon is here, so yeah, okay. The Fake Tears must be setting up for Sylveon in the back. Max Darkness takes out Meowstic. We don't know what it was going for that last turn. Sylveon takes a Psychic pretty well, though. Sylveon, of course, being a very specially bulky Pokemon. Every evolution has base 130 somewhere for Sylveon at special defense. A little unfortunate that it's not special attack here, as Hyper Voice narrowly misses both KOs. We see leftovers on Sylveon. We see Buzzwole come in for Staff United. We see the end of Darkrai's Dynamax. Darkrai just goes for a Dark Pulse. No Gravity ever set up, by the way. Clearly, they're not going for the Dark Void plan. Dark Pulse into Buzzwole. Air Slash doesn't quite get the KO. Buzzwole, double weak to that attack, showing how tanky it is. You'd think the Dark Pulse maybe could have tipped the roll over the edge so that it could get the KO, but that is not what happens. Buzzwole does flinch, though, after the Air Slash. Hyper Voice takes out both these Pokemon. Only Kangaskhan remains for the cooler Dreamyard Darkrais. There's also the Tailwind is over, but Kangaskhan still outspeeds these two. Double Edge takes out the Buzzwole. Hyper Voice does more than half to Kangaskhan. Sylveon just has to take a hit from Kangaskhan now. It detects first to get some leftovers recovery. Nice optimal safe play there. And then it still drops to the Double Edge. That Kangaskhan hitting harder than I anticipated. I don't think of Kangaskhan as a very strong Pokemon. Although Double Edge is a very strong attack with Stab. And we have not seen Kangaskhan switch moves without leaving the field, so it could be banded. It also switched out right away as soon as its Ice Punch got disabled, even though if it has Scrappy, I guess it doesn't have to have Scrappy, but if it does, Double Edge would hit the Dragapult. So this could be a choice band to Kangaskhan. In any case, I would have guessed the Sylveon would take a hit there, but it does not. And the cooler Dreamyard Darkrais, without clicking Dark Void a single time, take the 1-0 lead. I wonder whether we'll see the Regigigas in Game 2. Let's find out. Chat seems to be confirming that it is choice banned Kangaskhan, as their tech can't hide from Staff United, but let's see what Staff United can do about it. It is Weezing and Regigigas leading against Spectre and Darkrai. The neutralizing gas is up. Spectre Dynamaxes turn 1, so does Regigigas. Tech is for Sucker on Dragapult. I just forgot game 1. Alright. Okay. Yeah. We get some Dynamaxes. We get Max Quake taking out the Weezing right away, so Regigigas will be forced into slow start now. Which is really bad news for it when it just Dynamaxed. But Darkrai setting up with a nasty plot. So Spectre being the immediate offensive threat. Darkrai setting up to be an offensive threat very soon. Regigigas not taking the bait, knowing it's not necessarily very threatened by the Spectre. Goes for the Max Strike into Darkrai, but it does have slow start, weakening it now. It does get the speed drops, but it's not hitting as hard as they want. The speed drops could matter quite a bit, though, as Sylveon comes in here. Sylveon can hit hard. It detects. Probably while Regigigas goes for another Max Strike. Sylveon takes minimal damage there, as little as it can from Max Phantasm. Darkrai misses a Focus Blast into Regigigas. Regigigas does get to knock Darkrai out and lower Spectre's speed. Spectre now at +1 special attack, +1 special defense, -2 speed. Kind of a weird situation all around. But the choice banded menace Kangaskhan is here. Sylveon switching, getting out of there. Still looking for well, Sylveon will probably want the Spectre to not be Dynamax before it goes for an attack into it anyway. Buzzwole switches in. Kangaskhan goes for Drain Punch, does a bunch of damage to Regigigas. Buzzwole just gets one-shot by the Max Phantasm. Spectre once again looking like an absolute menace. I've really talked up the East Coast Espurr, making their team even more threatening by getting Dracozolt from the cooler Dreamyard Darkrais in that trade a couple weeks ago. But this Spectre has really been demonstrating that the trade was a win-win. One more Max Strike, does about half to Kangaskhan. Sylveon is here. Its opponents have had their speed dropped. The cooler Dreamyard Darkrais do have another Pokemon, though, so they can switch if they want. But Kangaskhan survives the Hyper Voice. Drain Punch takes out Regigigas, gives Kangaskhan a bunch of that health right back. It should still be in range of a Hyper Voice now, though, so it switches out to Sigilif. Takes a bunch from Hyper Voice, but then drops to a +2 Shadow Ball. And just like that, the cooler Dreamyard Darkrai is showing just how threatening this team can be. They brought the Sigilif and the Darkrai, but they never clicked Gravity, and they never clicked Dark Void. They brought the Gothitelle, they didn't even bring it to a game, and they didn't bring any of their 3 Perish Song users, even after they just picked up the 3rd one. And Spectre or Darkrai just went crazy this game, and choice banded Kangaskhan in both games. And Staff United, one of the teams tied for first place, do take the 2-0 loss this time, even as they correctly call out some of the techs. From the cooler Dreamyard Darkrais taking on one of the first place teams, we now go to the Dreamyard Darkrais taking on one of the first place teams, this time the East Coast Espurr. It is going to be a weather war once again. We see rain on the Darkrai side and sand on the Espurr side. Espurr have brought their scary sand duo of Hippowdon and Dracozolt. They also have Rillaboom, which is very threatening into Politoed and Dreadnought. Rillaboom, I could see swinging this matchup. Primarina is also honestly very threatening here as well, because it can take advantage of the opponent's weather if that's how things shake out. Its water-type attacks are boosted by the rain. It also has the Fairy Stab to threaten Zoroark, Hawlucha, and Obstagoon. They have Klefki for, I don't know, miscellaneous support. I could even see the Espurr running a dual weather team here, but maybe that's a little bit much. And they have the Colossal, so they can set up the G-Max Volcalith if they want, although Rillaboom and Primarina seem like the bigger threats than Colossal in this matchup, and Dracozolt as well if they position it right. On the Darkrai side, they do have the duo of Indeedee and Hawlucha. Hawlucha can help them check the Rillaboom and maybe some of the other threats depending on its set, but yeah. I feel like weather control is going to be very important for this team. Hawlucha can also help them deal... Yeah, weather control is going to be very important for this team. Dealing with the Rillaboom is going to be very important for this team. Even still, the Primarina is a threat, but a lot will come down to the specific game plans. I'm also curious as to what Obstagoon is doing here. Also, Zoroark Mind Games could be fun in this one to see. Politoed and Hawlucha leading as Primarina and Colossal. Confirmed the real Politoed as Drizzle does activate. I really thought we might not see Colossal actually come to a game here, and here it is leading game 1. Is it going to be Aqua Jet into Volcalith? Or even Max Flare? Indeedee because Politoed switches out to Indeedee. This is probably the real Hawlucha then. Yeah, it gets the Psychic Seed to activate on Burden. It Dynamaxes. Colossal just protects. Max Quake goes into Colossal. Boosts special defense on that side. It does activate a weakness policy. Primarina just throws off a Dazzling Gleam. Hawlucha takes that okay after Dynamaxing. We see the Life Orb on Primarina. Primarina Dynamaxes. Colossal is taken out by the Max Quake. Hawlucha now at +3 special defense, making it a little bit hard for the Primarina to threaten it. Indeedee hits with an Expanding Force. Max Starfall actually does a lot of damage though, but at +3 special defense, the Hawlucha does take it. Misty Terrain now up. Primarina getting worn down by its own Life Orb. Rillaboom comes in, changes the terrain to Grassy. Hawlucha goes for the Max Guard, avoids a Grassy Glide Snipe. Primarina takes some more Expanding Force damage, but this is now no longer terrain boosted Expanding Force, and it KOs the Indeedee back with a Max Geyser. Hawlucha is still threatened by the Grassy Glide, so is Dreadnought, so the Darkrais may be just hoping that they can overwhelm the opponent right now by having both of these threats on the field together. Grassy Glide does take out the Hawlucha. That will give Dreadnought a chance to go for something. It's Ice Fang into Rillaboom, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. Dreadnought takes a little bit more than half from a Max Geyser, and Dreadnought is of course very vulnerable as to the Grassy Glide now. Politoed also weak to that, but I imagine Dreadnought's a higher priority target. The Darkrais, knowing that, they protect the Dreadnought, so they avoid the Grassy Glide this turn. Politoed goes for Scald into Rillaboom, fishing for the burn, and gets it. Dazzling Gleam from Primarina. The Max Quake boosts are gone. Hawlucha and Indeedee have fainted. Politoed takes that okay, though. But there's just not much threatening Primarina, especially with the rain over, so Dreadnought no longer having access to Swift Swim. Grassy Glide still takes out Dreadnought with the burn into that double weakness. Primarina takes the Scald, no problem. Dazzling Gleam does half back to Politoed. And Rillaboom should be able to close this one out without the burn being much of an issue, as... Oh, it's actually... Okay. It is Gen 8 Grassy Glide, pre-base power nerf, but it goes into a Rindo Berry. Politoed does survive thanks to that, but it seems to only have Scald to threaten these two Pokemon. Primarina still takes that after all the damage it's accumulated. It gets burned, but it makes no difference to this Dazzling Gleam. And sure enough, I was surprised that Primarina does faint to its own Life Orb at the end. I was surprised that Colossal even came to this game. It doesn't look like there's much you can do in this matchup, but maybe they're cooking something that I don't know about. Maybe they were just baiting out the Hawlucha Dynamax there. With Colossal, that would make sense in itself, but sure enough, Primarina and Rillaboom just very hard for the Darkrais to deal with. And we'll see what they have for those two Pokemon in Game 2. I could see the Zoroark coming, and then doing what, though? Going for a Sludge Bomb, maybe, or even like a Torment or something? I don't know. I don't know if Torment even helps them. Both Primarina and Rillaboom have multiple attacks they can use to threaten a lot of this team. Maybe it is just try to snipe it with a well-timed Sludge Bomb. Indeedee and Dreadnought, definitely the real Indeedee as we see Psychic Surge activate. Leading here against Klefki and Primarina. Dreadnought Gigantamaxes, I believe that confirms that it's real as well. Primarina Dynamaxes. Klefki sets Reflect. Indeedee Energy Ball does a quarter to Primarina, not bad. But thanks to the Reflect, Primarina takes the G-Max Stone Surge pretty well, despite its name, of course, that is a Water-type attack. It does set up Stealth Rock on the Espurr side of things. Dreadnought takes the Max Geyser extremely well. Primarina setting up the Rain, which gives Swift Swim to the opponent, but also boosts Primarina's own damage. It also boosts the G-Max Stone Surge, but Primarina still takes that, not as well as before. Also still takes an Energy Ball. Special Defense drop is not going to matter at this point. Primarina is dropping soon anyway, especially with the Life Orb damage. Gets a big Max Geyser, does 3/4 to Indeedee. Primarina has been putting in a ton of work this set, just tanking hits and hitting back hard. It keeps taking damage, but I mean, it didn't faint until the end of last game, and it's going to get at least a couple of hits off here. Dreadnought no longer focusing on the Primarina, lands a Max Quake into Klefki for 50%. Primarina Max Guarded, so it avoids the Energy Ball from Indeedee, as Dazzling Gleam chips these Pokemon down some more. Dynamax over on both sides. Rillaboom switching in now, changing the terrain, making Indeedee's life harder, and obviously being massively threatening into Dreadnought. Primarina goes for Aqua Jet. That's probably on the team to activate Colossal, but with Psychic Terrain no longer protecting the Indeedee, that is able to get the KO, and that's then why Primarina went for Max Guard last turn, because it knew that it could do this once its Dynamax was over. Primarina, once again, never dropping to anything in this set except its own Life Orb. As Rillaboom takes a Liquidation, no problem, behind the screens, and it just switched in. It doesn't get to attack this turn. Hawlucha comes in. It doesn't get its Psychic Seed because Indeedee has been knocked out. Klefki is back. and Psychic Terrain is not on the field. Both Pokemon protecting on the Darkrais side, as Hawlucha avoids a Fake Out from Rillaboom. They both have Protect around a Dazzling Gleam. But Dreadnought is still in so much danger here. It can switch out to Politoed, and it does. We know the Politoed is the Rindo Berry. Thunder Wave will slow Hawlucha down. It also never activated its own burden. As I mentioned, Rillaboom just plays it safe, U-turns out to Hippowdon, and that'll change the weather. Rough time for Politoed to come in here. Hippowdon takes an Acrobatics like it's nothing. We see leftovers on the Hippowdon as well. Dazzling Gleam chipping the Hawlucha pretty nicely. Hawlucha goes for Dig. Okay, so that's how it was using Max Quake. It did sort of cross my mind to wonder what ground attack it gets, but... well... normally when you use Dig, you're still vulnerable to Earthquake, if the Hippowdon even has that, but I believe as a flying type, Hawlucha is still immune even when it's underground, which is kind of a funny interaction. Politoed goes for Scald into Hippowdon. This time it doesn't get the burn. I think that's the first one it's missed this set. And it's made drowsy by a Yawn. So it switches out to Dreadnought here. Dazzling Gleam still chipping things down. Doesn't get to hit the Hawlucha this turn. Hawlucha being so slow means it avoids that one. Dig into Klefki doesn't do too much damage. It's not that strong. But Hippowdon high horsepower catches Dreadnought on the switch. And it feels like the Darkrais are going to run out of offense at this point. I mean, Politoed can come in and set up the rain. And then that Scald will be threatening into Hippowdon, but there's still Rillaboom lurking in the back. Dazzling Gleam takes out Hawlucha. Politoed is made drowsy and it can't switch out anymore. Hippowdon actually still took that Scald really well. And we're seeing the power of... okay, didn't take it so well this time. Oh, the light screen wore off, I see. We're seeing the power of Hippowdon here just being massively bulky behind screens and giving them weather control, and Yawn being very disruptive. It's not an offensive threat, but it's definitely playing the role the Espurr need from it here. Politoed falls asleep. Hippowdon can heal itself with Slack Off. There's no need for Rillaboom to even come back in. The threat of Rillaboom probably sealed the game for them anyway, but we don't even have to see it, as Hippowdon just went crazy this week. Overwhelming the rain matchup without even needing its own weather up the whole time. And just a solid, bulky game plan from the Espurr, proving that for all the offensive threats on their team, with screens, with bulky Primarina, with Hippowdon, they can also make the team very hard to break. And the Dreamyard Darkrais were not up to the challenge this time. And finally, for this week, we have Lunala Plaza taking on the Windsor Whiscash. Lunala Plaza with the familiar duo of Noivern and Blacephalon. Noivern able to set Tailwind and avoid mind-blown damage with Telepathy. They have the Indeedee. They have the Zarude. Not sure entirely what some of these Pokemon do in this matchup, although Zarude could be threatening into that Gastrodon and a Barraskewda. They have Licky Licky, which can shut down any weather mode if it has Cloud9 again that the opponent wants to throw at them. And they have Rhydon, which is actually pretty threatening in this matchup because the strongest Pokemon for the Whiscash so far this season have been Circuitry and Galarian Moltres, especially Circuitry, but Rhydon with Lightning Rod can shut down the electric attacks from the Circuitry, and it also is, as a bulky rock type, a threat into the Moltres, although it's vulnerable to everything else that the Whiscash brought this week, so it might be hard to position, but we'll see what they've cooked up. Noivern and Zarude lead this time against Moltres and Circuitry. Those two threats right off the bat. Zarude Dynamaxes turn 1. Lunala Plaza messed up on Amon just to realize this late, but we'll see if that affects whatever they're cooking here. Moltres also Dynamaxes turn 1. Circuitry goes for Protect. Noivern sets Tailwind. Max Rockfall does a fair bit of damage to Moltres, but actually narrowly avoids knocking it into Berserk range, so I think the Sand damage will do that. And that's actually optimal for Lunala Plaza. They avoid giving the Berserk boost there. Moltres goes for Max Airstream. I have learned in a past week that Moltres doesn't get Tailwind in this generation, so this is what it has to do, I guess, if it wants to provide some speed control. Zarude takes that pretty well, actually. I guess Moltres is not that strong without any boosts, and sure enough... oh, okay. It has a Citrus Berry, though, so it will get another chance to potentially get the Berserk boost later. But it does not manage to get it for now. The nice thing about Citrus Berry on Moltres is you can potentially get Berserk twice, and that's definitely not happening in this game. Noivern switches out to Indeedee. Indeedee shows Psychic Seed. Zarude knocks out Circuitry with a Max Quake, so there goes a very threatening Pokemon out of here right away. And Zarude will take the Max Airstream somewhat better after the Quake. It should be in range of another max Airstream now, but it should also still be faster than the Moltres as long as Tailwind is up. Barraskewda comes in. Zarude gets to, thanks to the Tailwind, just wipe that out with a max Overgrowth. Of course, Barraskewda was not here to benefit from the Airstreams. It will drop to a max Airstream now, but it's put in a lot of work beforehand as the Whiscash are down to their last 2 Pokemon. Plus 3 speed, Moltres is very threatening. Its Dynamax will wear off, though. Blaziken is the last Pokemon for the Whiscash. We see Blacephalon for Lunala Plaza. Noivern switches back in. Is it going to be Mind Blown? Blaziken protects. It is Mind Blown. Moltres is knocked out. It's just Blaziken left for the Whiscash against Noivern and Blacephalon. Doesn't look very favorable, but with Speed Boost and the Tailwind ending here, we'll see what it can do. Noivern, though, still faster than Blaziken, sets the Tailwind right back up. Blacephalon knocks it down to a Focus Sash with a Shadow Ball, and Blaziken will drop to the sand damage now. So it does get to take out Blacephalon with Night Slash, a move that I did not know it got. Oh, the Sandstorm ended. My bad. Blaziken's still here, but it shouldn't be able to take out both of these Pokemon before it faints. Protects here to get to plus 3 speed. Important to deal with the Tailwind. Noivern's still faster, but it goes for Tailwind again. Is Noivern choiced? That's the only move it's clicked in the whole game, I'm just realizing. Wait. Okay, and DD knocks out the Blaziken. I was actually starting to worry for Lunala Plaza there when the Noivern didn't attack. But they do have just enough left to close this one out. The Zarude went crazy this game. The Moltres wasn't able to keep up, and the Zarude taking out Circuitry with a Max Quake was also pretty big. But we'll see what adjustments the Whiscash have now in Game 2. Indeedee leads with Noivern against Barraskewda and Gastrodon. Okay. Indeedee goes straight for Follow Me. Noivern sets Tailwind. Ice Fang, it's Propeller Tail Barraskewda once again. It ignores the Follow Me, knocks out the Noivern. No more insight on Noivern's item to be had in this game. Indeedee takes an Ice Beam pretty nicely, though. Lunala Plaza saying they clicked the wrong button, not sure what that's referring to. Blacephalon comes in, Blaziken switches in, Indeedee protects. Blacephalon goes straight for a Mind Blown. Both these Pokemon resist. Blaziken doesn't take it super well, but considering it does half back to Blacephalon, both these Pokemon surviving is pretty good for the Whiscash. And a Scald will take up Blacephalon from there. Pressure mounting on Lunala Plaza as their 2 fast threats have been knocked out. Rhydon has to come in now, but not against one of the Pokemon it checks, instead against 2 of the giant threats to it. It does Dynamax, though. Lunala Plaza is saying they meant to do something else with Noivern, not Tailwind. Maybe we'll get some insight in Game 3, if we get to a Game 3. Indeedee takes a Night Slash. It looks like we're likely to get to a Game 3, but Blaziken does get knocked out by a Max Quake here. Indeedee redirecting a Scald, giving Rhydon some cover. Can Rhydon pull this one back? Barraskewda is here, though, with the Propeller Tail. It Dynamaxes. Heal Pulse into Rhydon, but with the Tailwind still up, Indeedee moves first, so Rhydon hadn't taken any damage. And it gets one-shot by Max Geyser anyway. Indeedee survives a Scald, but it's not going to be able to save this game by itself, so we are going to Game 3. The wins are Whiscash with the Propeller Tail Barraskewda, leaving both the Moltres and the Circuitry behind, or at least we didn't see them in this game. There was one Pokemon not revealed. But showing that their Water-type threats can put in a lot of work in this matchup as well. Certainly making it difficult also with all those Fire resists for Blacephalon to get the kind of damage it wanted with Mind Blown. Solid set of adjustments all around, and that means we are going to Game 3. Noivern leads with Licky Licky this time against Barraskewda and Gastrodon once again for Whiscash. Noivern Dynamaxes. I'm getting a strong suspicion that this Noivern was running a choiced Tailwind set, which has been an issue so far. It's kind of inflexible in what it does, but of course, if I'm right, then Dynamax will switch off that choice item. Barraskewda just throws a close combat into Licky Licky immediately and knocks it out. Did Barraskewda led last game, right? And I think Noivern outsped it and set Tailwind. I might be misremembering, and I've already closed the tab, but I think this interaction here might confirm Scarf Noivern. Noivern goes for Max Overgrowth. Off of what? Absorb? Does it get another Grass attack? Does it get Giga Drain? I don't know, but whatever this is, it's enough to knock out the Barraskewda. So Barraskewda won't be sweeping this game. Noivern also only takes about half from an Ice Beam thanks to his Dynamax. Indeedee comes in, so does Blaziken. Gastrodon Dynamaxes. And survives a max overgrowth thanks to it. Indeedee takes a Night Slash, not well though. Heal Pulse into Noivern. Noivern should take, well, it would take an Ice Beam, but it does not take a max Hailstorm. And there goes the Dynamax for Lunala Plaza. But the Gastrodon's very low. That said, if Blacephalon comes in, okay, it's Rhydon. If Blacephalon comes in, it's still not that threatening into Blaziken and Gastrodon at the same time. But it's Rhydon. Indeedee goes, or Rhydon goes for Endure. Indeedee protected. Avoids a Night Slash. Rhydon survives the Max Geyser, but what are they setting up with this? I guess we don't get to find out, because the Night Slash would have knocked out Indeedee, so if they're going for like Trick Room or something, we still wouldn't have found out, because it just wasn't going to work. I did also see the GG already in the chat. Oh, it's Custap Berry Rhydon. Custap Berry is what they call a pinch berry, like Lychee or Salak or Aguav. It only activates when the Pokemon is at low HP, and it works like a Quick Claw, but it's guaranteed. As soon as you're at low enough HP, the Custap Berry will activate on the very next turn. So Rhydon does get one big attack off here, but it's a Rock Slide. It's not doing that much damage to these two Pokemon, especially Dynamax Gastrodon. They, I'm sure, would have really liked to flinch Blaziken there, but it doesn't happen, and I think we know it didn't need that crit to knock out Indeedee. And Gastrodon finishes the job against Rhydon. Unfortunately, another win for LeBron here, as the Windsor Whiscash take down Lunala Plaza and send the whole league a nice little reminder that even the teams at the bottom of the standings cannot be counted out yet. Yeah, if the Whiscash are making a late push for the playoffs, these last couple of weeks are a solid start, but in any case, the Gastrodon, of course, a PDL Season 8 champion, looking like a menace this week and dismantling the offense from Lunala Plaza. I don't think we saw the Zarude again after Game 1, and Zarude did a lot of work in Game 1, so I wonder. But the close combat Barraskewda and the more aggressive plays with the Blaziken would both be threatening into it, so maybe Lunala Plaza needed to make some adjustments, but in any case it didn't work out for them. And that is the end of PDL Week 6. Another crazy week. It's been nothing but crazy weeks this season. Turns out Sword and Shield VGC Draft is a ton of fun. I wasn't here for Season 1, so I didn't know. But 2 more weeks of the regular season and then playoffs, and still probably all kinds of weird interactions and crazy text to be seen from here. I don't know if we'll see anything like that Ryangreenblue Nothing Burger set again. That was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in Draft League, but definitely stick around because who knows what is coming up in these next few weeks. See you in Week 7.